And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I am Sarah Burr, and I am flying solo today. Poor JC is starting a new job, and we're wishing him so much luck. But he unfortunately won't be here with us this afternoon. He will be back in the future, though. Don't worry. But I am especially delighted to be able to chat kind of intimately with our guest for today, Sydney Leigh. Sydney has actually been here on our show before, talking about her first novel, Peril in Pink. But today we're going to dive into the world of social media influencers with Instagoner, which I can't wait to talk about. Finally, someone who understands my love. And also like Kate of social media, I think. Well, yeah. There's a lot to unpack, Sydney, but welcome back to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here, and our readers are excited to be able to chat with you as well.
Thank you so much for having me on. I had such a great time last time, and I'm so happy to be here again. And it is so fun because you and I both have series where we talk about social media as like a main theme. So it's especially awesome to be here to chat with you, who we have such similar books in that sense. So,
and I think we'll be able to really kind of tap into, number one, like what makes it intriguing for us to write about, but also kind of like some of the maybe like some of the less like glaring themes that kind of emerge from the fact that like social media has like just kind of impacted our lives so greatly. But first, before we dive into our conversation, we've got a bunch of folks chiming in. We've got DHB saying good afternoon, Mizan saying hello to everyone and wishing JC luck with his new job. We've got Farmhouse Reader, we've got Donna, and we've got David Plank also saying good afternoon. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Thrilled that you could join our conversation. And because you are here with us live, you will have the opportunity to enter into the ebook giveaway that Sydney is doing for Instagoner, which is the first bark and blog mystery. And I love the bark aspect of this. I love it, love it, love it. We're going to dive into it, obviously. But Sydney, could you kind of give us a little bit of a background of yourself as a writer and kind of what brought you to writing cozy mysteries?
Sure. Well, while I didn't start out as a writer, I've always loved stories and storytelling. And I'm a big reader, you know, from Nancy Drew to you know, Agatha Christie, to all that stuff. So like so many mystery authors, I started my love of writing from reading. And I also love Murder, She Wrote, Gilmore Girls. You know, I have a lot of TV love as well. So that definitely is an influence also. So that's kind of where I came from. Cozy mysteries in particular, I think it was the punny titles that really just drew me in. Like I just couldn't get enough of it. The covers are so fun. They're lighthearted, and you know, you never feel sad. Like you're always laughing and trying to figure things out. So there's so many aspects of cozy mysteries that I enjoy. So that's really what brought me to the cozy world. And so and Instagoner is on the new book. I guess it came out at the end of August. And so it's about social media. It's a social media influencer or blogger who crowdsources for clues.
Oh, I love that catchline. Oh, love it. Anytime that somebody mentions that what got them hooked on cozies is the titles, I'm like, that is right. Speaking to like my own experience, I just remember vividly walking through Barnes and Noble and being like, what is this section? Because I too, I'm like, and to this day, like I'm still obsessed with Nancy Drew. And the fact that there was this whole genre of like adult Nancys that was just like waiting for me to discover it was just like, I can't believe that this is my calling to read. And then of course that urge to begin writing one really took over. And particularly because that as I was reading these and reading about, young women who are, they're going through some type of, change in life, or they have just gotten over some type of event that they feel like they're starting fresh.
Yes, yes.
And finding myself identifying with that feeling so much when I first discovered Cozy Mysteries. But noting the fact that all of these women were doing this crime solving and they weren't using their cell phones to help them with it. And so that's kind of what led me to kind of incorporate social media kind of so heavily into not only the trending topic mysteries, but really all of my books. All of my sleuths are using the internet in some form or another. But I'm really curious, what was it about the influencer lifestyle or perspective that you were you know what, they would make a really good amateur sleuth?
Well, I think it's fun. There's a lot of interest in true crime, and you have these armchair detectives, and it's such an interesting trend. In real life, there's been real mysteries solved by people looking at the internet and doing deep dives, and I just find it fascinating. And for somebody like an influencer who has a lot of people kind of tuning in on a regular basis, I mean, it's a whole world. It's not just, in necessarily one town or one area. They really have access to the whole world. And so it's just such a wealth of information of what people, they might know somebody, they might know something, you just don't know what you're going to discover. So it's just so much opportunity for learning, I guess, and discovering. And it's also a great, you don't know, if us here, we don't know who's watching us. So there's kind of that element of mystery, right? And so I just love all of that.
So the fact that you just said that there are armchair detectives that are solving cases in real life, I literally just listened to an episode of Dateline this morning that was about it was about a Jane Doe. They actually called her Lavender Doe because of the color of her shirt. And it was nobody knew who she was. And these armchair detectives on Reddit got into the case and somehow enlisted genealogists into finding out who this woman was and determining how she died and who killed her. And it's, to me, as someone who's always wanted to solve a crime, I need to find those forums on Reddit because I'm just this is what I love. And I think that's partly why I write mysteries, is because I do want to solve a crime, but because I am not stumbling across dead bodies in real life, I have to come up with them myself. The ability that you can use social media for all of this information gathering, I think, is so, so valuable, especially in an amateur sleuth capacity, because, you can dig up so much stuff about, looking up at somebody's profile, checking alibis to see were they where they said they were? Because their story says that X, Y, and Z. But it's also really difficult, especially for me, because, I've really cut back on my own social media usage. I am a Facebook and Instagram person. So I don't know TikTok that well. I don't know Blue Sky or all of these platforms that are growing in popularity. But I have to pretend that my sleuth does. Do you find that are you doing research about the actual ins and outs of how does this platform work in order for it to work for your story?
Definitely. Because I mean, one of the things that I was curious about that I didn't know, because I don't follow influencers that closely myself. I'll kind of scroll around like everybody, but I really thought what are they posting about that makes them so fascinating, that makes people want to tune in every day to see what they're talking about? And not just the topics, but how are they presenting it? What makes, obviously there's got to be some charisma, I guess, but it could be, there's so many topics, and what are they doing to make people come back? And so there's a lot of that. What can my sleuth even be, blogging about or whatever. So I definitely had to do some research on that.
That's such a good point, especially like knowing Emily's posting style and like the way that she interacts with her audience. I want to dig into that a little bit more, but first I want to say hi to Regina. Regina just chimed into the chat, wishing everybody or saying hello to everyone. So Emily, she has a very, I guess, like a down to earth way of presenting herself, where she kind of gives people a view of life. Almost unfiltered. I think a lot of influencers are very glossed over. Like we're like everything's presented perfectly. Like especially like cooking influencers, that they're just like, oh, I just happen to have all of these ingredients like right out in my garden, and all of this fun stuff that like you can kind of joke about, but also like there's also like a sense of almost insecurity of like, oh man, like my garden doesn't look like that. Like maybe they can teach me this. But I think Emily like really like approaches it differently. So I'm wondering if you can kind of share a bit about her character and her like life as an influencer.
Sure. Well, she kind of had a journey even before coming to Instagoner, and that was more as a couple. And she kind of found out the hard way that trying to be too perfect and present yourself as maybe something that isn't 100% genuine can really backfire. And that's what happened to her. And I don't want to go too much into it because it is detailed a little bit in the story. But really, that was the motivator for her to just being like, you know what, I'm just going to be who I am and lay it all out there, because the quest for perfection really it almost destroyed her. And so she just thought, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And that's what she's trying to dig into. She's an anti-people pleasing is kind of her motto. So that's what she's going for.
I love that she's learned that lesson already, and so that we can kind of, as the reader, see how she is building life after that.
Right. And she doesn't always do it because she's naturally a people pleaser, but she's really like just having been burned from trying to be too perfect, trying to make everybody like her all the time. She's just like, no, I'm not doing that. And she really, so it does get messy sometimes, and it's not always, butterflies and flowers and stuff. Sometimes she's angry, and she allows her viewership or readership or whatever to see that side of her.
The fact that you were just talking about like this perfect appearance that the influencers put on, and this need to like always like be at the top, making sure that Emily is very truthful about kind of what she's going through, both in her personal life and kind of the things that are going on around her. And I do just want to point out to Donna, who is saying that she loves my Christmas tree. Talk about filters. Donna, this is a fake background. I'm thrilled that it looks real because I love it. And I think I'm like, oh, this makes me feel super cozy.
It is so cozy.
It's amazing.
I was like,
I'm just going to stay on this web call for the rest of the day, because like, oh, I really like this atmosphere that I'm in. But in full disclosure, Donna, it is a fake background. So let's switch gears, Sydney, and let's talk about the mystery that Emily finds herself in, and maybe a little bit of kind of like framing I guess speaking of atmosphere, like the town that she lives in, because there's a lot going on in this cozy mystery town, because there is kind of like a celebrity element to kind of the makeup and the industry that's there. So can you kind of set the scene for us as to where Emily lives and who this victim is, and why she's kind of, I guess, why she's known as the Queen of Mean?
Right. So I guess my biggest inspiration, the town is called Elliott Hill, and I really took a lot of inspiration from Ellicottville, which is a Western New York ski town, and it's only a couple hours from where I live. I didn't use the real town because I didn't want to get in trouble making mistakes with little details and stuff, but definitely a lot of influence. I used to snowboard there almost every weekend. I've spent a lot of time there because it's a great place to ski, actually. And it's a really quaint town. some of the bigger ski towns, are really perfect looking. And Elliott Hill, like Ellicottville, has a lot of small little shops, like the chocolatier. It has, the candy, the bookstore, the candy shop, the sports shop, and you really get a sense of community. And I know that with the Hallmark type of movies, they love little towns like that. And so I really wanted to draw on kind of that little bit of fun that, I also live in a small lakeside town, and sometimes there's filming around. There's always an excitement when you see the camera trucks roll in and whispers of who might be in town and this and that. So I wanted to bring that in because I just thought it was kind of fun. So within Elliott Hill, I have a TV studio or film studio that's just kind of like right on the outskirts of town. And so there's a morning talk show host. Her name is Jackie. And so she is lucky enough to get a lot of these celebrities to come and chat with her, even though it's just a local station, because they're in town filming. So that's kind of the background of her. But she is not the nicest person, and sometimes it can get her in trouble. And so she has a reputation for being the queen of mean, and Emily herself has experienced this firsthand. So when the book opens, it's kind of as you know, with Cozy Mysteries, the queen of mean is the victim. So that comes apparent very quickly.
Yes, it does.
And yeah, very quickly. And Emily has she has an interesting history with her. And while she kind of comes to understand her as the book unfolds, it's partly why she really gets invested in this mystery and to kind of understand her better. But they almost had a friendship because she goes on as a regular guest onto the show as kind of the social media expert, as some of these shows have their sometime guest people. And so she's kind of she has to really deal with her feelings about the victim as she gets involved in trying to solve the murder.
I definitely thought that was a really cool dynamic that you set up very early on because, and I don't think for our audience members this is too spoilery, but you had been talking about kind of the traumatic experience that Emily had gone through beforehand that kind of led her to like, oh man, like pretending to be perfect when things are not can backfire. Jackie kind of has a hand in unmasking that. So for, I think, Emily to be at this place with her where she's a collaborator. And I just thought that was a really insightful dynamic to show, especially and kind of reveals a little bit about Emily's character, that, she's willing to kind of put the past behind her, like really big time, and move forward. And so I thought that was like a really nice character development for Emily.
Thank you.
And showing like that, we can be told that people are nice people in a book, but it's really special when we're shown how like forgiving that they are. So I thought that was very well done.
Thank you.
I am already looking at the time here and seeing that we have almost about only 10 minutes left together. So I want to make sure that we get our viewers who are joining us live, get you folks entered into our giveaway for today. We are doing a ebook giveaway of Instagoner, which Sydney has so generously offered folks. Your magic word that you can type into the chat is going to be Christmas. So go ahead and type in the word Christmas. Make sure that you're logged into your Google account, your YouTube account. If you're having difficulties using our chat feature, we want to make sure that we get you entered in, and we will announce a winner at the end of the show. Sydney, I actually wrote a quote down because, and this is kind of going back to maybe a little bit about the motivations that our amateur sleuths have in these stories. And because Emily is a public figure, and she's the one who discovers the body. There's this element of kind of damage control that she has to maintain a little bit in order to kind of make it through this whole thing unscathed.
Right.
And the quote that I had written down, because I was like, oh my gosh, like this especially hits home for me with kind of the conflicts that my sleuth Coco runs into, is, did my brand matter as much as Jackie lay dead on, or wait, hold on. Can't even read my own handwriting. Oh, did my brand even matter as Jackie lay dead on some metal table? And so the fact that like Emily's thinking about herself in a moment that, you know, some people might be like, oh, why is she thinking about her brand at a time like this? But I think that's human nature. And that's something that I always like really feel strongly about when I'm writing, is like, I know that this may sound cold or self-centered, but things affect us. If something is going to affect us, we're going to think about it. It doesn't mean that we're going to, you know, harp on it for a really long time. And often Coco, she's like, oh, you know, I probably shouldn't be thinking that, or I really shouldn't be like, you know, way to be self-centered, Coco. Like, she's very reflective of it. And I think that Emily does a nice job of balancing those motivations where she's able to, you know, and I think this speaks to what you were talking about, like understanding Jackie. So is there a way, this is a very long-winded way for me to get to my question of how do you kind of balance this stardom persona that Emily is dealing with, but also kind of keeping it cozy, keeping it centered on those warm elements that cozy mysteries are so beloved for? Right.
Well, I think that has a lot to do, or one of the ways I try to do it is through her relationships. And I think her most important relationship in this book is with her best friend, Fitz. And I just love Fitz.
I love him.
Thank you. He owns the coffee shop that she spends a lot of her time at. And I think the dynamic of, you know, the sidekick kind of best friends really helps develop her character. So she's not just this like person who's writing blogs, who's solving the mystery, but it kind of helps kind of show who she really is. So.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm glad that you brought up Fitz, because I definitely want to talk about him and Noah, because I love the dynamic that he and his older brother bring to Emily's life. But there is a moment that that really stuck out to me that kind of like really summed up their friendship very nicely, I thought. And it's toward the beginning when Emily's kind of working through the fact of like, oh my gosh, like I found a dead body. And Fitz he's kind of like needling her with questions. And she's like, I don't really want to go into this. And they have this really like, you know, this kind of like sibling like banter in a way. And I just wonder like that their relationship, I think is super special. Was that something that really like organically formed over time, or was it something that like at the very beginning of sitting down to write this, you're like, I really want Emily to have like a super strong partner in her investigations, and Fitz just kind of like walked in and fit the bill?
Yeah, well, it's funny because two of my best friends are male, two guys, and always have been. And I think it's a fun dynamic. There is like kind of a sibling vibe, but it's a teasing vibe, you know, a really safe space. And I just think it's a fun dynamic to have that. In another book, in Peril and Pink, her best friend is a female as well as like her business partner. But in this one, it's funny. I just knew who Fitz was from the moment he just came onto the page. I just knew him, and he is. I probably miss him the most. Like when I'm not writing those books, I think about him the most because I want him to be my best friend too. Because you know he's just one of those guys. You're like, oh, I love that guy.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think And I think that, I mean, having a sidekick or a best friend, whoever that person is, I just think it's so helpful in so many ways. It helps you solve the crime, get your inner thoughts out without having, really long dialogues of inner thoughts. And it also provides some fun.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's where, a lot of the humor draws out through their relationship, I think.
And yes, and I think that what you said about like it helps, it moves the book along too. Like instead of like having these like slumps of just the sleuth like sitting there like pondering by herself, you have these like very like engaging action scenes that either it's dialogue or they're going out to do something that are always moving things forward. And I love your comment about like Fitz is the one that you miss when you're not writing these stories. Like for me, that's Jasper, and like he's like the best friend that I want to have. Although I kind of do. Jasper is definitely like someone that I have made from people in my life, and so it's. I just love how these characters, like we connect with them and then our readers then can like form these relationships with them. And speaking of relationships, I am keeping an eye on the time, but I do want to make sure that there are two very important ones that we haven't touched on. First is Noah, who is he is also the sheriff, but he's also Fitz's brother. And I just love that setup. And then we have Murray, who is the Bark in the Bark and Blonde mysteries. Can you share a little bit about, I know that we don't have much time, but I'm wondering if you could just kind of like tease our audience members of who they are in the story.
Sure. So, well, the easiest, actually, it's funny because the easiest way to describe Noah is kind of comparing him to his younger brother, Fitz. So Fitz is like, he's a snowboarder. He's very laid back. He's just, take every day as it comes. And his older brother, Noah, is the sheriff. He is not like that at all. He's definitely more straight-laced. He is, he's a nice guy. He's a kind guy, but he's just not the joker that Fitz is. And Emily has been in love with him her entire life. So it's, her forever crush. And finally, in this book, there's a little movement there, not a ton, but there's some stuff that starts to happen, and that's just so fun to write about. And Murray is Murray's 100-pound mutt who's he's just a bumbling mass of fur who is usually with Emily, and he lets his opinion be known, as most of our pets do, one way or another. And but he's always kind of there to either have to be walked, where it can, walking a dog is always a great way to find clues, and kind of and he's a little bit of her protection too. So and he is inspired by one of my male best friend's dog, whose name is Murray. So I just had to put him in there because he's hilarious.
I definitely, I feel that I didn't used to write cozy mysteries that had pets in them because I didn't have a pet of my own. And I wasn't sure like if I could authentically convey like how does having a pet like weave into your life, because you do have to like remember like, oh, I have to go walk the dog, or oh, I have to get home and feed the dog, or and how does that like insert into your schedule of sleuthing. But of course, once we got Evie, it's like, okay, I gotta like find ways. And you're right, they make for such like good kind of investigative like conversation starters, or just like reasons like, oh, let's go on an adventure.
Right. I mean, it can be a bit of a pain in the butt. You're like, oh, I can't leave. Murray's been gone for 14 hours. Better change that up, because that would never happen.
Yes, it's for me, I'm always just like, you know what, every day we're just gonna have like a lunch break portion where it's like, oh, gotta go home, feed the animals and all of that good stuff. But yeah, it's funny how we have to like think about these kind of everyday mundane things that we do, but we have to fit them in these stories to really make them feel like they're real and they're real people. Oh my goodness, this time just like flew by. I feel like every episode gets shorter and shorter when we're talking cozy mysteries. Folks, make sure type in the word Christmas into the chat, which if you'd like to be entered into our giveaway. I will be pulling our winner shortly. Sydney, can you tell us if folks want to follow you online, newsletter, any Facebook groups, where can they find you? Where should they be looking to sign up for things?
Sure. So I'm on all the basic, all the regular social media. I would say I use Instagram and Facebook the most. I have a TikTok account, but I'm not really that active on it. And so definitely Facebook and Instagram are my, Instagram is probably my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also in a Facebook group called Murder They Write. Murder They Write. And there's a group of, I think there's 10 of us, all women, crime, fiction, cozy crime writers. So
fabulous. We actually had one of your fellow group members on the Bookish Hour last week, Rose Kerr.
Nice.
And so we love the Murder They Write group here, and we're always singing your praises. It's a super fun group, folks. Make sure that you sign up. And any chance, are you involved in any I know that there's a million of them going on right now. Any holiday takeovers that you're a part of?
I just had one on Saturday or Sunday. There was this one that went on, I think, for about 3 days. It was called the Cozy Mystery Party.
Yes.
So it was super fun. I think I did 6 posts in 30 minutes. I was sweating. Oh God, I gotta get the next one, the next one.
It's
but
intense.
It was a lot of fun. So.
I think, that is a 2-week event just because they had so many people signed up. So if you missed it, it's still going on. Lots of fun. And just like this conversation this was so great, Sydney. I'm so glad that we got to talk about Instagoner, which is available now at your favorite ebook retailer. Our giveaway winner for today's giveaway. I could have said that better, but our giveaway winner is Mizan. Mizan, congratulations. Mizan, I have your email on file, so I will go ahead and send that on over to Sydney once our episode concludes. Folks, thank you so much for being here live and for hanging out with us. We hope that we brightened your day with some of our fun social media chatter. Real quick, Sydney, you said that Instagram is your favorite platform. What one, that's my favorite too. Which one do you think is the most useful for solving mysteries?
Gosh, that's a good question. I wonder if it's Facebook. I don't know.
I think there's a lot that you can find on Facebook, just
there
like
is.
Just like
there
the
is.
data itself. But I'm a really big fan of using stories that are on Instagram and seeing what people's activity is for the last 24 hours. What have they been up to?
It's so true. And you know what? Even just checking a few of them, if you go, okay, because sometimes people post different things on different platforms, you can get a lot of information.
You can. It's kind of creepy. And you had said earlier, you never know who's watching. So not to scare anybody, but everybody, we always encourage practice safety, make sure that you check your security settings every so often. Because you'd be surprised what these platforms, when they roll out big updates, that they're flip the switch on stuff. So that's another helpful PSA for for everyone today.
Thank you so much for having me on again, Sarah. I love your show. It's so awesome. It's always fun. You're such a great host.
Well, thank you. I am so glad that we got to chat, and thank you for sharing your work with us. I hope that you'll come back when we have more books to look forward to.
Definitely.
So, folks, again, thank you so much for being here. We have another episode of the Bookish Hour airing later this week, 8 p.m. on Thursday, December 12th. Our guest is going to be Gail Lukasik. You may remember her. She came on and talked about a Gothic suspense novel that she wrote, but we're actually going to be diving into this really cool memoir about stories that she's collected from families across the world. So it's going to be really exciting. It'll be a really, I think, a very thoughtful episode. So I hope that you'll join us. And until we see each other again, stay bookish, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.